Day one of camp is officially in the books.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Thursday, February 12th, 2026. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen. Every single day, we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. And what a glorious day it is, as day one of camp is officially behind us. We look ahead. Baseball season is, you can almost taste it, okay? It's right there. We have pitchers and catchers that have, well, they've all reported at this point. We have some injury updates to talk about. It's always kind of the hold your breath part of players reporting to camp, so we'll discuss that at the end of the show. We also had media availability for AJ Hinch, Scott Harris, and for Framber Valdez. So all of those things we will go over. We have our first depth chart announcement, which is no surprise to anyone, but it's still exciting. Let's start off, however, with things that, we didn't really have a chance to get to earlier in the week, as the Tigers did make a pair of signings that were not related to the Justin Verlander acquisition this week as well. Just some smaller minor league deals that we will discuss here. Austin Slater, an outfielder, signed to a minor league contract with an invite to spring training, and Connor Pilkington. I can never say his name. I never have been able to, and I'm not sure I ever will. That is his name, though. Another minor league deal with an invite to spring training. I'm going to call him Connor because it's easier, is going to be a left-handed pitcher. Let's break both of these down, because I think that, honestly, both of them are as intriguing of additions as you can make the day that players start reporting to camp and minor league deals, right? Like, obviously, there's still minor league deals with invites to spring training. Nobody's going to get too crazy about them, but I do think that there's a clear purpose and reasoning for these additions. Austin Slater, a 33-year-old outfielder, I think that this one really makes all the sense in the entire world, and I'm entire world. Wow, we're getting super dramatic already, but I'm honestly kind of surprised if there was interest there from the start of the offseason that it took this long to get a deal done. Maybe he was holding out for a major league deal and it just never came, so he had to, settle for a minor league contract. But if the Tigers were interested, this seems like something that has made sense for them to do all offseason. And you're asking why? Why does this make so much sense? Well, it's really simple. Really, really simple. He is an outfielder that bats right-handed. That's it. That's the whole reasoning. That is this move makes all the sense in the world to me, the entire world even, because he's a right-handed hitting outfielder, and the Tigers have literally zero of those pretty much at any level of their system outside of the emergence of Jahmai Jones a year ago, and now hopefully this year the return of Matt Vierling. Now, again, this is a minor league deal. I'm not expecting him to make the major league team. I think ultimately they'll just stick with what they have in Vierling, and almost certainly, maybe not as certainly as Vierling, but, Jones had such a good year last year that they'll, probably default to him at least early on, even if he doesn't have an incredible spring. But Jahmai Jones had a great spring training in 2025 as well. So in terms of Slater, does not hit right-handed pitching very well. Never really has. But according to, this is via the New York Post, a lot of John Heyman's work, from 2017 to 2023, his OPS versus left-handed pitching was almost 840. It was about 837, which is phenomenal for a guy that is, again, coming in on a very cheap deal. Last year, he was on the White Sox. He was also a depth addition for the Yankees in the second half of the season, post-trade deadline. And like his stats against lefties were good until he got hurt. And then in the last like month of the season, I think he literally had one total hit in the last like 2 or 3 weeks of the season, all put together. So his stats against lefties are, I mean, it's still an OPS over 700 even with that. But they certainly don't look like previous years because of that skid post-injury to kind of end the year rather. But if you take a step back, I mean, it was pretty much business as usual. OPS over 800 against them for a majority of last year until that skid there. I mean, he's an average defensive outfielder, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but honestly, like you look at the right-handed hitting outfielders that the Tigers have had outside of obviously Vierling, but he didn't play last year. Like Justin Henry Malloy, love him to death, rooting for him forever. Great human being, awesome, forever a fan in me. Pretty brutal defensively, and that's like honestly maybe putting it nicely. Jahmai Jones DH'd a lot last year, and when he was in the field, it was kind of a disaster. It was not a very good defensive outfielder. So I think they're kind of just hoping for like, hey, maybe a right-handed hitting outfielder that isn't a complete disaster in the field as well certainly doesn't hurt. I mean, really, like in terms of what this means, not a ton. This is just adding to their outfield depth and gives them another right-handed hitting outfielder after, Jahmai Jones in the organizational depth chart. And that's very much needed because, again, like you are a Matt Vierling injury away from Jahmai Jones being like the only right-handed outfielder in the entire organization. That's like even remotely major league ready. So I'm all for it. I think this makes a ton of sense. Connor Pilkington. Okay. I think that is right. But even with the Nationals, I just, whatever. I think it's because it's like IL, like I don't know. I'm not even going to try to justify why it's like making me unable to read. Another minor league deal with an invite to spring training. This is a left-handed reliever, presumably for the Tigers, will be a reliever. Lefty, 28 years old. This is honestly, the numbers here are like pretty darn like enticing. He has a sub-4 career ERA at the major league level with almost 90 innings under his belt at the major league level. Like this isn't one of those guys that, he does really well in the minor leagues and then, has an 18 ERA in his, 5 innings at the major league level. Like he's 88 innings of work at the major league level with a sub-4 ERA. Not bad. Like I said, left-handed pitcher with a fastball that gets into the mid-90s, 94, touches 95. Really solid strikeout numbers pretty much at all levels of the minor leagues, and that is carried over even to a decent strikeout rate at the major league level. Same with whiff rate. I mean, it's really a 2-pitch pitcher, just depending on he has 3 total pitches, but to lefties, he goes fastball slider because he is a lefty, and to righties, he goes fastball changeup. And that's again, this is a pretty, again, for as much as I feel like I've said again a billion times, as far as minor league signings go, not a bad profile here to kind of hang your hat on. I'm sure that he'll just be another guy that's kind of in the running for one of the 50 bullpen spots that are going to be up for grabs. But I mean, the Tigers clearly have made it a point that they have pretty remarkable starting pitching depth now heading into camp and heading into spring training. And they also have a ton of bullpen depth. And obviously that doesn't mean that, the 30th guy in the depth chart is going to win the reliever of the year award. Bring back the reliever of the year award, by the way. Okay. Criminal. This doesn't mean that your 20th option is Aroldis Chapman, but like I think that it does mean something that they have a ton of guys that even the ones that won't make the major league roster, Toledo's bullpen is going to be full of just guys that have major league caliber stuff or have had major league experience before at some point in their career. And if not, if when inevitably one of the relievers gets hurt and misses time this year, they'll have a pretty deep and maybe not deep, but a wide net, I should say, to kind of pick from. And I think that that's valuable in its own right. All right, we got a few announcements. We got some media availability and much more after day one of camp. We'll do that right after this. First, though, I'm going to talk to you all about our friends over at TurboTax. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert start to finish without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2s, self-employment forms, and work to get you every single deduction possible. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right on the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, just file by February 28th. Take taxes off of your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. As always, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. And we will, of course, be back tomorrow for a Friday show as we all get excited for the first full team workouts that will be this weekend. So thank you for tuning in and making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. If you haven't already, go check out the new Everydayer Club. LockedOnPodcast.com/everydayer, and you will get access to ad-free audio for Locked On Tigers, as well as access to a members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes me and all the other everydayers that are listeners of this show. Should be sure to check that out today. Let's continue our conversation in regards to the first day of spring camp here. Pitchers and catchers have reported, and baseball is just around the corner. This is always the fun time of year when we get like pictures of like people walking into a building from a parking lot, and we get, like 4 seconds of a pitcher throwing the softest soft toss they've ever thrown in their lives and all that. And we still just get unbelievably giddy with excitement. And that's what's beautiful about us. That's what's beautiful about baseball and the fans of it. We did have a couple of announcements. This one is, in previous years in Tigers history, is a big deal and is a big talking point. In this current era of Detroit Tigers baseball is not big news whatsoever, and that is that Tarik Skubal has already been named your opening day starter. There was no controversy. There was no ifs, ands, or buts. AJ Hinch pretty much started, like pitchers and catchers reported, immediately the media went over to Scott Harris. They asked him about it. Then they just about like the team and obviously a little bit of Framber, but a lot about Verlander, etc. Then AJ Hinch comes out. They talk to AJ. One of the first things he says is, Tarik Skubal was the opening day starter. There have been years where that's been like a big talking point, right? Is it going to be Eduardo Rodriguez this year? Or, the string of seasons where it was Matthew Boyd. I think it was only 2 maybe. Like that Jordan Zimmerman obviously was for a couple of years there. But with Tarik Skubal on your roster, that's not really a big talking point. It's not really news. I think it's still fun to announce, though. Tarik Skubal will be your opening day starter for the 3rd year in a row. I believe, was it Sarah Langs? Somebody really cool tweeted, as Sarah is, that this is the first time that the Tigers have had an opening day starter for 3 consecutive years since Justin Verlander, back obviously in his first stint with your Detroit Tigers. Shout out Tarik Skubal. Other things from the first day of camp, we have a Framber Valdez, I guess we'll call it a press conference. It was kind of in like the spring training media room, which like makes sense. Like they're not going to, he's reporting to Lakeland. They're not going to go to Detroit and then like have him fly to Florida. Like they're just do it there. The cool thing with this for me, and this means nothing. Okay, I want to make that abundantly clear. This is not me saying that this is going to like equate to wins or anything. Okay, I understand that it doesn't. Just from a pure fan perspective, it was really cool to see the entire starting rotation show up to Framber's press conference. And like him and Verlander, Valdez and Verlander have been teammates before for multiple seasons at that. They spent a lot of seasons actually together in Houston. But I mean, seeing, like it was Flaherty, Mize, Skubal, Verlander, all were in attendance and were watching the introductory press conference, and then went up and took a picture with, Framber after, so that the whole rotation could take pictures together. I think that's again, doesn't mean anything, but it's cool. And we're allowed to celebrate cool things. Okay. We got to take cool and fun and exciting things whenever we can these days. And I'm not gonna, feel bad about thinking that something was just like neat and that's all there is to it. There was a lot of things in terms of what he said that was like nice to hear, obviously through a translator throughout. But like, he's excited to be here. That's great. He's super competitive. That's great. Just a bunch of, cliche stuff that is not newsworthy. It would be kind of concerning if he didn't say all of those things. So we'll take it. That's great. The one question, and I want to give Cody Stavenhagen of The Athletic all the credit in the world. Great dude, great show, great writer, great everything. Support Cody. I want to give him credit because he asked probably the only even remotely noteworthy question in this entire media availability. And he asked the one thing that people kind of pushed back on or had concerns about when Valdez signed, and that was, I didn't even talk about it really in the episode after they signed him, and that was the incident with a catcher in Houston last year where he intentionally crossed him up and threw a fastball that hit him, square in the chest. And so Cody asked about that. And he was like, what were kind of what came out of that situation? What happened in that situation? What do you want Tigers fans to know about you? Maybe people that have seen that situation unfold. And I do think that Valdez answered and handled that incredibly well. Like didn't deny it, was just like, yeah, like, that's something that happened. But mentioned, that he is, again, incredibly competitive, said that he and the teammate, the catcher that he crossed up, I forget which one it was, to be honest, off the top of my head. But that like Framber owned up to it and apologized to it and said that he is still friends and has a relationship with him today. And like, it was just a heat of the moment, he's super competitive type of thing. And that it's, whatever. So take that with what you will. I know some people are just like, I'm never going to get over that like thing that happened. And that's just the way of the world sometimes. And I get it. If that's your take, I'm not going to get in front of that. But to me, like, I'm not going to let that get in the way of a guy who's been statistically one of the like 5 or 10 best starting pitchers in baseball over the last 5 years, because he had one incident with a guy and he says that they're still like cool after. Like it wasn't like he tore the clubhouse apart and ruined the morale for everybody on the team. Like he apologized and they're fine, according to him, obviously. So again, take that as you will. We also had Scott Harris and, as I already mentioned, AJ Hinch talking to the media. Not a ton came out of this, but I do want to talk about it anyway. We will do that right after this. All right, third and final segment, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate you all for tuning in. Don't have anything else on the Framber Valdez press conference. Just again, shout out Cody for asking a tough question, and shout out to Framber for, again, I think handling himself and answering it well, and everything that goes with that. Scott Harris had it wasn't a press conference or anything, just kind of a scrum. He was on the outfield grass, and then the media kind of swarmed him and asked some questions. Talked a lot about the Verlander signing. The one of the things that I appreciate a lot about Scott Harris is that when he sees something in a player, you know about it, and assuming he's asked, but like he talks about it. Right. This isn't just like, hey, Verlander was really good in the second half and he was really bad in the first half. Like, what went into his signing? And this isn't just like, oh, we're just banking on the second half being real. Like, he brings tangible observations. And he mentioned that like he was standing on a different spot in the rubber in the second half. He also mentioned his release point changing in the second half. He said it got a little high, I believe was his terminology. A little bit when he was struggling, and he, corrected that. He also said there were some things in the lower half of his wind up and in his delivery that he changed in the second half. And so he, is of the belief, presumably, that it's not a fluke that he was just like randomly good for the, in the second half and struggled in the first half, and that there was actually things that he changed to get better, and those things made him better. And if they do those for a full season, then he is confident that he can be good for a full season. That's, I don't know. Again, like there's only so much you can say before we even see him throw to really like instill confidence. But I think that that's about as confident as you can give, right? Like, again, he brought tangible observations and evidence as to, why he's confident in the signing and why he liked it. Obviously not, aside from the fact that it's just going to make the Tigers an absolute boatload of money this year. Also spoke very highly of Chris Ilitch. He's not going to speak poorly of him. That's his literal, like, direct boss and the owner of the entire franchise. He's not going to walk out there and speak ill of him, but mentioned, Ilitch's competitiveness, said that Ilitch was more excited about the Framber signing than he was even when he told them about it, and that they made that decision before they knew the results of the Skubal arbitration hearing as well. So kind of like reinforcing the, hey, like I do have financial support from Ilitch. They're now top 10 in payroll. So it's kind of hard to deny that at this point. I'm not saying this. I'm not like, I didn't magically become a Chris Ilitch apologist overnight. Okay. I'm not saying this from like that. I'm literally just relaying what Scott Harris said to the media, and you can take it for what you will. I still have all of the same opinions I do about Chris Ilitch as I did 48 hours ago. The only other thing that Harris really mentioned is that he just said that he really likes the roster with where it's at. Again, he's not going to say he hates the roster on the first day of camp or that it sucks or anything, but kind of just mentioned that they've gotten better and had a better record than the previous season and each year that he's been here, and he thinks that they can do that. I don't know if he actually said, I think they will do that, but that was kind of the impression that I got through my ears. So not an exact quote, but take that as you will. AJ Hinch also talked to the media, even less really than what Harris gave, which was already not very much. Aside from mentioning that Tarik Skubal was going to be the opening day starter, said that he had a conversation and went and sat down and talked with Framber Valdez before the signing. They talked about his competitiveness, and that was like the big theme, is like how competitive Valdez is. And how much that he wants to win, how much that Verlander wants to win. Obviously, Verlander, Hinch, and Valdez all have history together, all three of them, together in Houston, and all just talking about how they want to go somewhere where they can win, and they feel like they can do that here. So all things that are nice to hear, but also things that don't really mean a whole lot, and like, no duh, they're going to say that. The last big thing that I want to bring up is the first injury report of the year. Now, when players report to camp, it is sunshine and rainbows. It is butterflies. It's beautiful. It's one of the best things ever. The one and only downside is that you learn all about the injuries that have been kept under wraps and have not been reported all offseason. And so it's kind of a little bit of a hold your breath situation when players report to camp. I think all things considered, we'll kind of take this. Well, so far, like position players haven't even reported yet. Who knows what that's going to look like? But obviously the Reese Olson one's a blow. I'm not even really counting that in this conversation because we already knew that. Now we learned it like 24, 48 hours before this. But I aside from Reese Olson, which is absolutely devastating and heartbreaking and makes me want to cry myself to sleep, everything else we'll kind of take in stride. The big one that gave everyone a jump scare was Dylan Dingler finds himself on the injury report with right elbow arthroscopy. I'm just going to pretend like I said that right. Now, this is a procedure he has had before, and he is doing all baseball activities except for throwing at full volume. He will be slowly worked up because that's obviously his throwing arm. He will be slowly worked up in terms of throwing and throwing from behind the plate. But everything else, hitting and fielding that doesn't involve throwing, he is doing at full speed. And everybody kind of made it sound like it wasn't that big of a deal. So I'm going to just choose peace and just choose to believe that it is not that big of a deal. The quotes that were from all of our beat writers that are, boots on ground down there talking with people really made it sound like not only is it not a big deal, but he'll be 100% even before opening day. So it shouldn't, on paper, affect anything at all. But we'll see how he progresses throughout. I think that certainly could have, was a little bit of a sigh of relief hearing that. The big surprise to me was that Jackson Jobe and Jake Miller both played catch, like on camera. Like we have video of Jackson Jobe throwing a baseball already. And that's pretty remarkable to me. I am still, maybe it's just like I'm protecting my emotions. I am still going to just be super pessimistic about this. I think from a planning perspective, you should not be banking on Jackson Jobe to like save your pitching. And the Tigers didn't. They went out and signed like 10, they have 10 starting pitchers or whatever it is on their 40-man roster, right? Like they didn't do that. But I mean, from a fan perspective, the game plan and from obviously a front office and management perspective too, the game plan should not be for him to like come in and save the day in August or September if you need it. So I'm going to continue to just operate as like he's not going to really be much of a factor this year. But seeing him already play catch in February is nice to see. And Jake Miller too. I'm hoping we see him at some point this season, but we'll see how he progresses as well. Had double hip. I don't know if it was a surgery, but like an injury on both sides of his hip, which is, certainly kind of scary. Other names that were on the injury report: Troy Watson, Dugan Darnell, Bailey Horn, Sawyer Gibson-Long, who really has just kind of been like perpetually on the injured list in the last 3 years, Tyler Owens, Eduardo Valencia, and obviously Reese Olson, all with varying degrees of severity. None of them seem to be, outside of obviously Olson and then like Jobe and Miller, none of them seem to be super like, oh my goodness, we may not see this dude for the rest of the year. But I would imagine that not all of these guys will be ready by opening day. And I would even go a step further into saying that probably a handful of them will not be ready on opening day. But they get healthy in April. They go down to Toledo. They rehab a little bit. They're ready on call whenever the major league team needs an arm. I'm still really excited about Tyler Owens. I maintain that from when he was protected from the Rule 5. Was that 2 years ago now? Obviously, we're all hoping for Sawyer Gibson-Long to take a step forward. Bailey Horn, I think, showed flashes in a very, very limited sample size last year. And then Valencia recently added. There's some guys in here that you hope can get healthy quickly. Okay, the last point I want to make is just kind of a fun little news and notes thing, a fun little anecdote. All spring training parks have Statcast. It's about time. It's 2026, man. Why did this take so long? I have no idea. But that means that every inning of every spring training game will be not necessarily on TV, which still absolutely drives me up a wall. We've had TV far longer than we've had Statcast, but, politics and broadcasting rights, etc. However, there will no longer be a game, if it's played at a spring training facility, that you won't be able to go on Baseball Savant and see like the data for and see the results of as they're happening live. You can kind of game cast it, if you will, that way as well. So that is music to my ears, and I know music to a lot of other people's ears as well. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day, and we will, of course, be back tomorrow with a Friday show for you. I appreciate you all greatly for tuning in, as always. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. I'll catch y'all then, baby. Go Tigers.